Hello, my name is Abraham Klein, and for the past several months, literally almost a year now, I have been in a new transitional period in my life in that I've been living on my own. Yes, around February, I had the opportunity to get my own apartment, and since then, I've basically been living on my own. And that is a natural transition that people should make into the um, area of adulthood, and I'm glad to say that I've made that transition. Um, and 5 months prior to that, I was living with a couple. They took me in for a while I was recovering in the hospital, and they basically let me stay there until I was able to find a place. And by the grace of God, I was able to find a place, and it's been great. And you know, the whole idea of moving out on your own, and you learn a lot of interesting lessons about life. And I'm not gonna, be like some who are like, "Oh, you finally learned that food costs money." Well, of course, I knew that beforehand. Stuff does cost money. I had to pay bills before I moved out of the house. But um, they also learn interesting life lessons. And one interesting life lesson I have come to the conclusion is that it's easy to make a mess. It's hard to clean things up. Now, obviously, in a literal sense, it is easy to make a mess. I mean, like, I could go out of my bedroom right now and go to the living room and ransack the place, make this huge mess, go to the kitchen, make a huge mess, and I could do all of that in literally a matter of minutes and have that whole place filthy. In literally a matter of minutes. Just start throwing things on. I mean, the whole place would be a mess. However, getting all that back to spot free, clean, for when my mom comes over for a visit, that's going to take some time. And it always takes time. Because, again, making messes is easy. Cleaning things up is hard. And that is an imperative message, not only in the literal sense of, hey, it takes time to clean things up, So let's not make too many big messes in our life. But also in the applicable sense, when we make decisions in our life, there are consequences. And sometimes, in many times, in most cases, making a mistake, it is easy to destroy a reputation and make yourself into something bad in the eyes of people, and so much harder to build that reputation back up to a positive place. And some folks, you might never rebuild your reputation, depending on how serious, the consequence is. And and of course we all know that, but I want to show you in just by an illustration, if you will. I like illustrations. I hope you like illustrations as well. As you can see, I have yellow paper here. That's nothing. That's part of anyway. I have these two things of quarters, these two stacks of quarters. Now, obviously, that took a little while to stack up, but I'm going to show you how a sloppy decision is easy to make. Okay, so I took these quarters and I dropped them. Okay, look at that. That took literally a second to occur. Okay, and I just like that, I was able to just make this big mess of quarters, and now there's this big mess of quarters just sitting here, and you know. But now I want to build it back up. I want to put these quarters back up. Now let's start the timer here. We're almost at 4 minutes. At about 3:57 is when we started, and it's now 4:01, and we're starting to build the stack back up of all the quarters. We're gonna try to build it back up into the nice little stack of quarters that we had before. So I'm picking up the quarters. I'm starting to build them up here. Okay. Got them now. Got them. Almost got it done here. Okay. So it's about where we were before. Let's maybe put it over there. Yeah. Okay. So that's about where our stacks were. A little bit uneven compared to what they were before. But now we can see we're at about 4:45 now. It was a little bit earlier than that we got it done. But anyway, roughly it took about 30 seconds. Maybe I'm just a slow stacker. But it took about 30 seconds for me to take that mess of quarters and stack them back up into the little stacks that they were. And that's a very interesting illustration about life, because it is so easy to make a mistake. It's so easy for us to make messes in this life, and yet so hard to build things back up to where they ought to be. I realize when we make a mistake in our life, and sometimes people make multiple mistakes. Sometimes people will make big mistakes, little mistakes. But regardless of the mistakes we have, they all have consequences. And many times there's going to be a stigma with what you do. And the truth is, there ought to be consequences for what we do. We ought to realize that the things that we do have consequences. When we do wrong, we ought to suffer a punishment. I understand all of it. But I do also understand that sometimes people's punishment, if you will, can go farther than the actual judgment requires, okay? And, many times people, it seems like everybody's forgiven, but they've not forgotten, okay? And the truth is, yeah, sometimes if you're a person who was known in the past for stealing, you do want to make things right, you're probably always going to have people that will not trust you with money. That's just the way it is, okay? And it's unfortunate. But that's just the way life shows us, that mistakes are easy to make. Cleaning things up are hard to do. And just as easy it is to make a mistake once, and just as hard as it is to build it back up, it's just as easy to make that same mistake and make that same mess all over again. And sometimes when you make that mess, it gets so bad that those little quarters that you made a mess with not only come crashing down, they're like in other places now. Now there are other parts of the room. Now you got to go find your pieces. Okay, and now it's going to become even harder. I'm looking at the timer now. It's like 7:03. Okay, so now I'm going to try to clean this mess up and try to put my quarters back together. And I'm trying to work as fast as I can. Like I said before, I'm a pretty slow stacker. So, I got these groups here. All right, I'm taking the quarters. I've got my first stack pretty much done. Now I'm trying to get the rest of these quarters here. All right, we're already at about 30 seconds in, and I'm not even, I'm almost done with my second stack. Almost done. About 40 seconds in already. Look at this. It is so much harder. And I've got my stack done. The stacks are uneven, so they're definitely not where they were before. Trying to get it back here, and done. And almost at a minute now, it took me even longer to get that stack ready, because unfortunately the second time that I made it, those quarters were, I didn't necessarily throw them all over the room. At that point I might have lost some, which is another, illustration about life. Sometimes we might even lose quarters. Sometimes there's things that when we make mistakes, there's things we lose, okay? And I guess the illustration can go in so many different directions, and I'm kind of maybe getting lost with this thing here. But I hope you understand what I was saying with all this. Is that, again, mistakes are easy to make. Putting things back together can be hard. And that's why it's very important that, yes, if we have made a mistake, we should try to build things up. We should try to get back to a good place. But understand, it's going to be hard. It's going to take a long time sometimes. And it's not going to be easy. And there's going to be some painful times ahead. But at the end, it's worth it, because look, you've got this beautiful stack of quarters again. Isn't that lovely? Beautiful stack of quarters. So build your quarters up, friend, or whatever. Anyway. But more importantly, for those of you out there who haven't gone down a rough road, those of you who haven't made the mistake, those of you who haven't spilt your pile of quarters, endeavor to not make those mistakes. Yes, you're gonna make mistakes. We're human, okay? We're gonna sin because we're born sinners. But endeavor, by the grace of God, to keep your stack of quarters together as much as you can. And I'll tell you what, that's the best thing we can hope for, by the grace of God, to try to not make as many mistakes. And if we have made mistakes, realize it might take some time, but in the end, it's worth it. Thank you for watching.